Listen. Thank y'all so much for having me on. Listen. It is a pleasure to hear from so many great speakers. It is an honor to be on this call tonight. So I'm gonna jump right in. For those who do not know me, my name is Brandon Rivers, and I was born right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was born in inner city Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte has definitely grown. North Charlotte is definitely not North Charlotte anymore. Um, but in my life, I've dedicated my life to making sure that communities like the one I grew up in has a real voice in shaping our future. Over the past few years, like Miss Miller has stated, I've worked on campaigns, advocacy groups, community outreach, and civic engagement, you name it. But the common thread has always been about building people power. I want to take a step back. First of all, I'm a father, right? I'm a father. I have an 8-year-old daughter named Brandy. She's the love of she's the love of my life. And she's the main reason that I really focus on making sure that our future is better because I know I won't always be here. I'm also a neighbor, and I'm also someone who sees firsthand how hard it can be when people feel disconnected or shut out of that political process. I love what Justice Riggs just stated about, right? She spoke about voter registration and voter education and how those are challenging in marginalized communities. But a lot of time, marginalized communities can be anything from just not an area where there are people of color. These could be college campuses. These could be high schools. This Friday, I was at West Charlotte High School registering and pre-registering high school students. Just like she stated before, on our new voter registration applications, you have to have the last four of your social, or you have to have your driver's license number. These high school students don't, a lot of them don't know the last four of their social, right? A lot of them, their parents ain't giving them their social, right? They don't have driver's license. It's not a requirement. It's not a law to have a driver's license. So some of these students, their applications were not complete because they did not have the required information. They had to get their phones out. They had to call their families to get the last four of their social. One mom was like, "What do you need it for?" Right? And we're just filling out an application to get them registered to vote, not getting them out to the polls. Just the first step of getting them out to vote. College campuses, just what Justice Riggs just spoke about. No, Nita Earls. I'm sorry, Justice Earls just spoke about college campuses being marginalized. We do voter registration on college campuses at our Charlotte Democracy Center, and we work in surrounding areas throughout the state. A lot of these college campuses, their student IDs are not even eligible or not even acceptable IDs for them to get out and vote in North Carolina because we have photo ID here in North Carolina. So we have to get the Board of Elections to actually come out to these college campuses so we can print out IDs for these college students to get out and vote. They want to vote. They just find it challenging. So understanding that when these students come to on their college campuses to vote, they have to update their voter registration so they can register to vote on campus. A lot of these students don't even know their campus address. I don't even remember my campus address when I was at North Carolina Central University. And I was a political science major. So understanding that we go on these college campuses when they're moving in, and it is a long process. Registering someone in the community can be a lot easier. So also understanding that firsthand that I see this on a day-to-day basis, how this can be challenging. The work that we do is just not about voter registration. Voter registration is just one of the first steps in getting people out to vote. But we have more people registered to vote in North Carolina that are actually getting out to vote. So one of the biggest things that we want to focus on is voter education and voter empowerment, voter literacy, and civic engagement. What we do at our Charlotte Democracy Center, we, of course, again, we register voters, especially in communities that are sometimes overlooked. So we register voters. I'm inside the detention centers where we're registering people to vote. A lot of people don't even think they're eligible to vote when they're inside the detention center. They don't even know that the sheriff is an elected official, right? So we're going inside the detention centers, getting them registered to vote. We're working with the probation and parole officers to make sure that anybody that's on probation for a misdemeanor, because you can still vote in North Carolina if you're on probation or parole for a misdemeanor, that we're getting them registered to vote. A lot of times it's just misinformation. We have more people that are that are uh, that are on probation for misdemeanor and offenses that do not understand that they have the power to vote as well. So we're making sure that we're providing a service for these people in these communities. We're at the roof above. We're at the Salvation Army. We're getting people that are just moving into Charlotte. We're at all the new apartment complexes because Charlotte, we're the 14th largest city in the United States. And I believe in the next about 10 to 20 years, we'll be top 10. We have thousands of people that move here on a day-to-day basis. So we want to be where they're at. We're at the Charlotte Public Transit Authority. And these are organizations that we have partnerships with, that I've been able to build partnerships with, where we go in and we're at all the transit authorities. So we're able to get on the transit bus. We have one of the largest transit systems in the entire nation, and we're able to set up and get people registered to vote, educated them about the importance of voting, update them about upcoming election days. You'll be surprised on how many times people don't know that we have elections every year in North Carolina, some of our municipalities. Training volunteers is one of the biggest things that we focus on as well at our Charlotte Democracy Center. We want to make sure that, just like Justice just spoke about, stating that we want people from their communities to do the work. You know, a lot of times we have volunteers and we have canvassers that are not from the community. They've never seen you in the community. And now you're sitting there telling them who to vote for. One of the biggest things we preach at our Charlotte Democracy Center is let's not be transactional. Let's be transformative, right? Let's not be transactional. Let's be transformative. You know, I want you to see me every month. You know, I want you, in a year, I want you to see me a few times. I don't want to just see me the first week before voting and then you don't see me after voting. And then you wonder why they don't want to speak to you. This doesn't make sense. And we want to hire people from their communities. You know, we have canvassers that coming from New Jersey and from Phoenix because they don't have a job. There's no money in local elections. What we speak about a little bit differently. We want to create a safe space for these people as well. You know, I've had volunteers speak to people in the community and say felons and those felons and ex-felons and ex-convicts. I said, let's use ex-offenders, right? You know, they're not convicts. They're not felons. They're ex-offenders. So understanding when we go in these communities, we want to make sure that we're not making them feel, hey, are you a felon? Why aren't you registered to vote? Are you a felon? I mean, that doesn't even sound right. What if he doesn't feel comfortable telling you that information, right? So understanding, we want to make sure we have trainings, that we have culturally diverse people in these communities as well. We speak about DEI with businesses. We need to make sure we have DEI in our organizations as well, right? A lot of time, I'm the only person of color in leadership in a lot of organizations. That's why I love the Center for Common Ground, because we're able to see a diverse sense of leadership. I know we've had a lot of long speakers, so I don't want to take too long. But just this year, we've registered hundreds, educated thousands of voters. We've held several community events and served thousands of residents. But also, one of the things that we focus on is we use an app called ActiveVote. ActiveVote is an app where people are able to download to find out what elected officials are, who their elected officials are in their community. You know, a lot of times, they don't know who the mayor in their community is. They don't even know what the mayor does. Some people don't know what the president does. I did a classroom presentation on college campuses. I asked them what the president does. They say he's the commander in chief. I said, what does that actually mean? Is he having like a tank and he's just driving it down the road? Like, what does that actually mean? He vetoes bills. Well, tell me what a bill is. So the same thing, a lot of them don't have the civic engagement or the civic education, right? But if I ask you who the president is, they'll know who they are. They'll know Chucks and Pearls, right? They'll know MAGA, but they don't know the benefits of actually voting. So that's one of the biggest things that we want to focus on. We also have surveys that we submit, that we have our community members submit. With these surveys, they ask, what issues matter the most to you? Did you have any issues when you went out to go vote? Right? Did you vote? Why did you not vote? And what can our Charlotte Democracy Center focus on? And what we do is I take this information, and I know all the elected officials in our area, especially local, and I speak to them. I have meetings with them and go over the information that our surveys go about. I have city councilmen that reach out and say, hey, what are those surveys saying? What are the people in the community saying? And I meet with them and have coffee and say, these are the issues that matter the most. Transportation is one of the biggest issues on one of our sides in Charlotte. It's not crime, it's not safety, it's not inflation, it's transportation. But they would not never know that because they don't have anybody on the ground. But we are on the ground. And that is the reason why the last thing is the reason I'm coming here tonight. We want people to donate as much as possible to support our Charlotte Democracy Center, to support all of our democracy centers, support the Center for Common Ground. I always tell people, they say they don't care, local elections don't matter. Well, there's no money in local elections. If they put the same money in local elections that they put in general elections, I mean, it might be a better shot. During general elections, you see Vice President Harris, she raised $20-30 million in 24 hours. We have local elected officials that can barely afford to go to the DNC. Right? We have local elected officials that barely can afford to pay their bills. So to continue to do this work, we have to have year-round organization. We're nonpartisan, so that gets us in the door. We have to be able to provide material. We have to be able to hire people, right? You know, if we don't have the money, we can't hire people to be on staff to be able to do the work, and then we don't have anybody to do the work. You know, I have a young daughter. I can't afford to volunteer. You know, I wish I could. I wish I came from a rich family, but unfortunately, I can't afford to volunteer at all times, right? So please, anything you guys can do, support as much as possible. Like I said, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I love being on this call. We've had some great speakers, but let's just continue to do the work as much as possible. I love everyone.
Thank you, Brandon.